Just do it. You might find you enjoy it. You might find it's useful, and you will learn in the process, and never quit. Because once you quit, then you become irrelevant.
I think consistency is key. Look for how it's going to benefit the customer on the endpoint. Like, make sure it benefits the customer.
Thanks for tuning into the Industrial Growth Institute podcast. I'm Ed Marsh, your host, and today we're trying something new. We got two guests. I'm joined by Dan Allford and Johnny Tyler of ARC Specialties. Dan is the founder and president of the company, which has a 34-year track record of furnishing what they call one-of-a-kind machinery for metal welding and cutting applications, material handling, pick-and-place machinery, and test equipment that help customers improve production quality, rate, and profitability. Dan always says that ARC thrives on problems and invites companies to bring their problems to challenge them. Now, Dan's got what, from New England, I might call a Texas-sized personality. He's an engineer by training who's become a bit of a media personality through his engaging content and really his authenticity. He posts frequently on LinkedIn on a variety of topics across a wide range: apprenticeships and career and trades, hunting safaris and range time, including the shooting clays team that his company sponsors, the oil and gas industry and a manufacturing economy, welding and robotics applications. Obviously, that's the core of what they do. His hobbies, including being an instructor in high-performance track driving and hiking and long bike rides. He speaks of the power of trade shows, and he even had one post showing the first aid kit he routinely carries with him everywhere he goes, including the trade shows and, I guess, occupational risk maybe in his industry. He talks in one recent post about how his hobbies require that several of his favorite activities mandate that he puts his blood type on his gear. And he also cites pronouns in his LinkedIn profile that I think convey moral courage, standing for what he considers important. So that's Dan. But we wouldn't know Dan nearly as well without Johnny. While Dan's often in front of the camera, it took some work to drag Johnny out from behind it for this episode. Johnny has a bachelor's in fine arts and graphic design that he earned while he was actually working at Grainger. So he's got an industrial background himself. At ARC Specialties, he drives the company's brand and messaging across various platforms, and he brings a creative lens to his broad marketing role, including overseeing initiatives from videography and web design through event planning and print and trade shows and more. So I've got a feeling that you may need a 3-point harness to kind of keep you in your seat for this one. I think we're going to bounce around quite a bit. As we get started, please do your part. Help others find episodes like this. You know the drill. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. And so with that introduction, I'm really looking forward to this. Welcome, gentlemen. You're coming from Houston. Thanks for joining me today.
Oh, nice to meet
Thanks
you.
for having us on, Ed. Our pleasure.
Cool. All right, Johnny, let's start with you. I know that you don't often get on this side of the camera. So when ARC Specialties, when I look at the YouTube channel, I see 353 videos. The oldest is 16 years old. A number of them have over 5,000 views. But 6 years ago, you came into an operation that obviously valued media. When you joined, what was the biggest thing that you knew you had to change in order to help Dan and his vision realize its potential?
Well, the first thing I knew was that I needed to learn how to shoot video. I came in with little to no knowledge on video, and Dan told me I needed to learn real quick, or I wasn't going to have a limited opportunity here. So I took a hold of the camera, took a hold of the software. Not afraid of software, not afraid of the equipment. Just went out and did it, and just try to use my composition skills, things I've learned from my fine arts background, and apply it to what we do here.
Okay. So video was the emphasis. And Dan, you've been promoting your business for many years. I would say substantially more creatively than many companies like yours. But what kind of triggered that for you originally? Was it just instinct, or why'd you start?
Well, we're a little company in Houston. Even though we're working in 33 countries, you have to get into those countries somehow or another. And one easy way to do that is with video. And I was surprised early on. Dr. Angie Price, one of the instructors at A&M, told me that she was using our welding videos in her welding classes. And I was kind of honored, and I realized that there's more to this than just marketing. That somebody's actually using this stuff, and I was tickled with that. And so at that point, we needed to do a better job, and that's when Johnny came on board. All we had were silent movies up till then, and then Johnny's got us putting audio overlay on them now.
So it was just the idea that you wanted to reach more buyers and kind of begin to establish relationships. Is that fair?
Right. That's the whole point of the internet, is to be able to, get out, and it was work. How can a little company like ours be in 33 countries? And I think that I have to credit the internet for a lot of that.
So you've both obviously been doing industrial marketing related stuff for a while. I hear a lot of business leaders in the industrial space who say things like our buyers are different, implying that they're not on LinkedIn, maybe that they don't even use the internet, as much as a software company. Your experience seems to argue against that. Do you have concrete evidence? Do you have anecdotal evidence? What do you say to people who say, well, our buyers are different?
Well, I think our buyers are different. I'm afraid they're right to some degree, because we sell to three different groups: either management, engineering, or the guys in the shop.
Okay.
And so guys in the shop, I don't know that they're on LinkedIn, but they also don't go to trade shows. So it's a tough deal. So only thing we can do is just spread the word, and then hopefully it'll trickle from one group to another, I suppose. But yeah, there is no perfect solution to this. All you can do is try.
And Johnny, do you have a perspective on why it's worthwhile creating digital content when not everyone necessarily is a digital native?
Yeah, I think it's very important to start making digital content. First, you need to set up the fact that I think that when I got here to the company, walking around, viewing everything, and then looking at the knowledge base here with all the employees, you have to set up the fact that this is we are thought leaders in this industry, so we're pushing forward these industries. So the thing is to get all that information out somehow, and I think social media is the best way, being that you got tons and thousands, you got millions of people on social media, and all those millions of people know somebody else. So that video can get pushed to one person, which get pushed to some other person. It gets pushed to that shop guy that Dan was speaking about, and that gets us out in front of those potential customers.
Right. So Dan, I think it's safe to say you're certainly a technical expert and obviously a strong manager, having grown the company the way you have, but you're also a leader. My sense is that your pitter patter matches your chitter chatter. And so when you're putting yourself out there on the camera, you're showing your colleagues that it's safe. You're not asking anyone to do something that you wouldn't. So what's the impact? What happens when you and Johnny suddenly come around the corner and ambush one of your folks and say, hey, today we're making a video? How do they react?
They shake their heads, but they've gotten used to it now. And in the end, it doesn't hurt a bit, and it's fun. Everybody enjoys it ultimately. And what you do is just push them a little further than they've been. Don't push them a long ways. But that's something we do all the time. When Johnny and I head out the shop with the camera, people are aware that they might be ambushed at any moment.
That's correct.
Do they scatter, or are they good natured about it now?
We're good natured. They're pretty good natured. I know when we get anybody new coming into the company, I always try to walk around, just try to get them familiarized. Like, hey, I shoot video. You're going to be on camera. What's your best side? So I can make sure to get it in the video. So
right,
everybody's pretty warmed up and cool to it.
Got it. Let's talk a bit about specifics. How do you pick the topics that you're going to be talking about or making videos on or creating your posts about?
I said, Johnny, grab the camera. Let's go out the shop. It's that easy. I usually have one idea. I think, what was it, Johnny? Last week we did. I want to do something about managing a business and leading in hard times, and so that was the first one. But once we get out in the shop, I think we shot 4 different videos. And so, what was our entire investment in that? An hour? I mean, to get 4 different blogs. So I think it's well worth the time. But so the first one was halfway thought out, and then the other 3 were spontaneous.
Okay, so then I guess the answer to my next question: are they scripted? The answer is no.
No. Maybe 1 video or 2 videos on that 353 video list is scripted.
No. We've had a couple of talks where I wanted to get everything right, and I think, but I can think of 5 or less that I scripted. But on occasion, it's something that I want to get the details exactly precise,
Right.
and but yeah, most of the time it's off the cuff, and that's what I tell people. We meet people at shows, and they'll shake my hand and say, "Hey, we watch your stuff," and I encourage everybody to do it. Everyone has a story. Everyone has something that they need to share with the world, and it's that easy. You just need Johnny.
So you don't have somebody holed up with technical SEO, researching on vidIQ and SEMrush and Ahrefs and all that, trying to look for key terms that are going to resonate. You pick stories that are important to you that from talking to buyers are going to mean something to them, and you just go ahead and make the video.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you do that, Johnny, how many takes are you typically making? And do you have to cut a lot out in editing, or are these you're basically getting it in one take and you just clean it up a little bit?
We don't. There's not a lot of one takers, but
Okay.
Dan's pretty
We've
good.
had a few.
Dan's pretty good. I think the key is just having somebody willing to get in front of the camera, be passionate about the work, and just be ready to talk. And when you're passionate about it, I think it comes out easy. I think it comes out easier for Dan, except for like those points he said when he wants to be technically specific
Right.
on certain things. Yeah, he's usually really spot on.
And Dan, has it always been this comfortable for you? Were you able to just get up there and extemporaneize if that's a word, I don't know if I'm saying it right, the way you do now? Or was it uncomfortable initially and it took you a lot of practice or a lot of reps to get comfortable to where you are now?
I don't know how many people are naturals in public. I certainly wasn't. Oddly enough, one of these certificates was one of my bosses 40 years ago had me go teach a class for the American Society of Metals. It's a long story, and he was specifically doing it to introduce me to public speaking. It's very technical, so I got through it. And so you got to learn by doing. And that's the beauty of the internet too. You'll get feedback. If nobody watches it, then maybe you're doing something wrong. But if you get a bunch of people watching this one and not that one, that's useful information.
And so in your world, as I looked at your channel, a lot of videos have less than 100 views, but I don't think that's bad. I mean, I don't know. What do you consider a reasonable number of views, say, over the first year? Or do you even track it?
No, to me, it's the views are not, the right people viewing it.
Okay.
That's what's important to me. It's we can have 1,000 views on a video, and it can be 1,000 sales guys that watch the video,
Right.
and just like, oh, I like the video, but if the video is viewed by the right amount of people, that's the right people. So we try to look at LinkedIn stats, looked at those things, and I can see who's watching the videos. And you can see we've grown a lot from sales to more of the guys inside, the shop owners, operation managers. We've grown a lot.
And obviously, early on, when there weren't a ton of views, you kept going, you kept investing and iterating, even when it wasn't necessarily obvious that the strategy was going to work. How did you have that faith to drive on after 6 months of no order that you could easily attribute to a video?
I'm not sure. It's one big package. There's no one thing that is going to make a company work, and the fact we're still working, and we've actually been around for 41 years, by the way.
Got it.
So the fact we're still surviving after 41 years means something's working right. I never doubted that. If you get 2 people watching something and it's useful to them, maybe it's 2 kids at college. I'm all in. That's enough for me. And I think our stats on LinkedIn are better. Some of the stuff there, easily 10,000, one of them over 100,000. And that's something Johnny and I can't do, is predict which ones are going to be popular and which ones aren't. And then even the popular ones, are they truly advantageous to the business? I can't tell you that.
Right. So I think what I'm hearing is that you firmly believe that in aggregate, this program is helping you. It's building trust. It's introducing you to new buyers. You're reaching companies around the world that you wouldn't reach otherwise. And what happens with any particular post or video is relatively insignificant. It's the aggregate effort and the aggregate body of content and knowledge. Is that fair?
I believe that's fair. I also believe it's important to first, you want to build that that thought leadership, that this person, that we are not just selling you something all the time.
Right.
We're offering information. Of course, we want to sell, but we're offering up this information, and we're a content system where you can go and maybe you need to learn a little bit more about GTAW or some MIG welding. Maybe you need to learn more about the process of the programming of the system or what we did in this specific instance with this robotic arm. So I think that was very important for us to start laying that groundwork of the thought leadership here at ARC Specialties. And then I think the rest will fall in line.
And clearly, as I look at your content, one thing that jumps out is there's not a lot of, well, this is our X123 system that does this, and here's why you should buy it. Instead, your content is about, hey, here's a technique, or here's a problem, or here's a kind of situation that companies often encounter. Let's talk about how you work around it, what's important. Has that been a conscious decision from the beginning? Because many companies just vomit up crap about their own stuff.
You don't want to read that though, and we're like everybody else. You don't want an infomercial. So what we're trying to do is share some technology. And we really, Johnny, I do three things: a lot of tech, but then we also do human interest. We did something about some extinct deer that we're raising, and then we also do opinions. Because so this is my bully pulpit to express opinions. All three of them are necessary.
Right. A technical point, I noticed that many of the videos don't seem to have custom thumbnails the way that YouTube often recommends. I know you do for some of your series, but not for the routine videos. Is that an intentional decision?
Yeah. So I do like a little A/B testing sometimes. I'll see what a graphic thumbnail, because I have a degree in graphic design. Of course, I want to make a ton of thumbnails,
Right.
but sometimes I've noticed that maybe the process, like the welding process or the action from the scene, does a lot better than a thumbnail.
I see.
A lot of times a thumbnail is graphical. It's almost like clickbait in a way,
Right.
where you see, oh, I saw that. What is going to be look this cool? It may not look that cool to them.
Right.
They may miss that graphic. But I think what resonates to people is the process. So if they see the process, oh, that's plasma going on here with a robotic arm. Oh, let me click on that and let me watch that video.
I see. You recently invested, I assume, a substantial amount of money in an on-premise podcast studio. So a lot of your video is shot out on the floor, but obviously, in addition to Dan's cadre of experts, you're kind of over-indexing or doubling down on podcasts going forward. What's driven that?
We did a podcast. Dan started doing podcasts before I got here, I believe. Dan did a couple podcasts a while back with a marketing agency. I think it's another avenue that was growing and booming, and it's getting information out is awesome. So we built the podcast studio. We had the room here across the street here in our research lab, and just took that spot and just claimed it and started using it for podcast studios. And Dan does a great job of talking. He talks a lot, so we get some good content out of it.
Right. Just kind of incidentally, I also know from watching your stuff that you've got a museum, a welding museum, which I assume may be part of your research center as well. So you've really built this interesting operation that's far more than just a workshop where you're putting together welding robots.
Oh yeah, it's all part of the game. We're collecting a lot of old stuff, and people aren't, you don't find welding museums very often. So I thought we ought to do one. So we have some ancient stuff in there that goes way back. In fact, I'm going to use some of the equipment in a talk I'm doing for the American Welding Society's Welding Summit next month. We're going to try to reenact the first electric weld made in 1792 by George Leichenberg. And so, use some of that old equipment for that. I'm just trying to get people into welding, into the industry. It's been not only fascinating for me, but it's been a great career. So I'm just trying to share that passion with the world.
And that passion is obviously clear. A lot of your content speaks to students and interns and what's the right word for it? The programs to help people joining in industry. The not internships, but I'm spacing out the word. But obviously, you focus a lot on bringing people into the industry.
Oh yeah, and I think life is full of options. And so we do a shadow program for kids. These are high school kids. They'll come in and they'll spend 3 days and they'll talk to mechanical engineers, electrical engineers, software engineers, welding engineers, and material science people. And at the end of 3 days, they come back and tell me which job they liked. And it's interesting. We've vectored kids into different careers that way. Fun story. I had two sisters that came in. One of them's now a degreed engineer. The other one ran away screaming and became actually went to college and got a degree in winemaking. Really? And lived happily ever after. And both answers are right. And that's the point of this. We're just going to show you some stuff. And if it's of interest to you, great. And if it isn't, I tried.
Right. A lot of people in your position, Dan, are really hesitant to do what you've done. Do you have any anecdotal information about why they might hesitate the way they do?
People are afraid that they'll make a mistake. I make a lot of them. It doesn't bother me at all. We're all human. I think that if Johnny and I made them too polished, they wouldn't be as credible. And so, we make mistakes, mispronounce words, even some bad camera work at times, and people are afraid of that. And by coming on our podcast, I mean, without exception, everybody we've had on the podcast in the end said that was fun. Yeah. So you just got to do it, and Johnny said that we built the studio. That's not the case. Johnny built the studio by himself, but it's been great. In fact, we've had several other people use the studio for their podcast. We don't charge for it. It's just all for the greater good. I'm all in on this.
What's interesting though is that obviously in many ways, technically, you're a perfectionist. When you put together a robotic system for doing offshore oil rig work, I don't know the details of how you do it, but there's no room for error in those cases. But leading up to that, you do a lot of experimentation, and this seems to reflect the experimentation part of your personality, not the perfectionist part of it. How do you balance those two?
Well, when we get a problem, we say we thrive on problems, send us yours. But when we get a new problem in, there's 3 possible answers. Technology is not available to solve that problem yet. Maybe later. We'll put it in the back of our mind and look for a solution later. Yes, we have a proven solution. Here's your proposal. Let's run with it. Or we don't know. And the reason we have a laboratory is frequently the answer is we don't know. And when I was a kid, my mom was one of the early radiation mutation researchers on the effects of radiation on genetics. And way back in the 60s, you could take your kid to a laboratory. Well, you can't do that anymore. But so I grew up in her laboratory, and I think that she taught me the love of experimentation. And so, I'm not irradiating fruit flies like she did, but we're doing a lot of interesting stuff, where we just go in the lab. Somebody says, how do you make titanium bulletproof? Well, it's not in the book. How do you weld tungsten? It's not in the book. That's why you have to have a lab. So when we get to that third question, the third group where we don't know, you've got to have a lab. What else are you going to do? You're going to build something and guess? That's not a good solution.
But that lab idea, this attribute that your mom cultivated and you obviously has bled over into the way you market the business. And it's neat to see that overlap or that analogy, if you will. When you hired Johnny, did you just get really lucky, or had you hired for that role before and learned lessons about how to select the right person? And what were the key skills that you knew you needed? And if you didn't have video when you hired him, how did you know that he would get good at it?
Well, as far as we know, Johnny's the only good marketing person we've ever had. We've had several. So it was a low bar, but he's killing it. It's great. And so we've had other people, but you got to have some passion. You got to be interested. And Johnny is wonderful. He'll bring all these new people in that have never been in front of the camera, and he is never critical. He always encourages them, tells them how good they're doing, and that's how he gets them to come back. But no, I don't know where to find the right marketing guy. And no, Johnny's not available. He's happy here, right?
Right, exactly.
So, Johnny, obviously there's a lot of graphic designers out there that can learn to do video, perhaps not do everything as well as you do. But you had this particular background where you worked at Granger and you understood a little bit, at least a little bit about the industrial space. How much did that help you step into this situation?
Um, wow, I don't think Granger helped at all.
No?
No, well, the culture to me when I walk into this company, when my interview day when I walked in, just I seen a company where a lot of people wearing a lot of hats, right? A lot of people doing a lot of things, and when you come in as a marketing person, I think marketing people get a little pigeonholed where they're like, "Oh, I'll just do this,
Right.
do that." No, I kind of wanted my hands on everything. I wanted the brand, I wanted the look, the visual identity of the company to be okay. I wanted the everything to be on par with what this company's doing behind the scenes. So that was my passion coming in, and whatever it takes. And then as for a marketing person, Dan's a gold mine because you got somebody that's constantly willing to pump out content, constantly
Right.
willing to jump in front of the camera, and that kind of trickles down. So you get your employees here that are willing to jump in front of the camera. So you just maybe need a little nudge because sometimes these guys get busy and they're busy, but just a little nudge. And I don't get a lot of pushback a lot of times, but it's good to get these guys in front of the camera, get flowing shot movement. Everybody's not afraid of camera. Everybody knows I got a thing. If Johnny has on boots, you're going to be on camera today.
um, how do the two of you actually work together? Is there a daily or weekly or monthly workflow in terms of, I guess you're not planning topics, but are you planning sessions? Are you planning a certain number of videos per month? What do you have for preparation and production? And how do you plan publishing dates? How is there a framework for that, or does it all just happen because you've done so much of it?
I think it's kind of organic. Me and Dan we have only rule I think we have is that we're doing three videos a week or three topics a week or something of that sort.
Okay.
But everything is just flowing with the company. You gotta be on the floor. I think as a marketing people, we're stuck in our offices a lot. You got to be on the floor, see new things. You got to see what's going on in the shop, see what new systems being built, see what's going on. Or you're going to be, you know, not attached. So
Right.
you need to be attached to part of the company.
And is anyone
Yeah.
worried about? Sorry, go ahead, Dan.
Well, it's pretty spontaneous what we do, and so what we do is we look for something that's interesting. If it's interesting to us, it might be interesting to other people.
Okay.
If you don't have anything interesting, then you need a new job. But fortunately for me, we're doing a lot of fun stuff. But other than to try to make 3 posts a week, that's typically our goal. And then Johnny's not talking about it, but the other way we go to market is trade shows. So he's got a constant process going on. I think we do 4 or 5 shows a year nowadays.
Yeah, 3 or 4. Yeah, 3 or 4 every other year.
And I know part of what you've done is actually created video content at shows. So when you're there with people, you're taking that opportunity. You've got other perspectives, other topics, other people that you can tap into. Are there other techniques that you use to kind of merge the digital and the physical world as part of your marketing effort?
No, I don't think. I don't know about techniques. I think me and Dan as a team, we for lack of a better word, we have the cojones. Like we were ready to go out and we wanted to do. So Dan wants to go talk. I'm ready to grab my camera and we're ready to follow Dan and go talk to some colleagues and start talking about what's going on the trade show floor. I think a lot of times these trade shows are nothing leaves the trade show floor. Everything's on the floor and stuck there. Maybe if you're a part of the industry or somewhat, you get to see a live stream or something. But for our customers and everything like that might not attend the trade shows, I think it's good to show what's going on. And they see what new technology we have, what's going on, and what's going on with the rest of the industry.
Right. Is anyone worried about attribution? Do you try to tie new opportunities and deals back to your activity on these platforms, or do you just have faith that it's going to work?
I just have faith. It's been working for 41 years, and so something's going right. And I like people. That's all there is in the world is people. And so particularly when Johnny and I talk to some of the young engineers and salespeople and at the trade shows, it's fun to put them on.
Right.
Hopefully it'll push them over that tipping point, and they'll start creating some content on their own. And this is how you start. Somebody's got to give you a little bit of a helping hand.
Sure. We talked at the beginning about experimentation, and obviously there's a lot of experimentation. I looked at your playlist or your series, Weld of the Week. You had 33 episodes over a couple years, and then you stopped doing it. So how do you decide when you're always experimenting, trying a lot of new things? How do you decide when to stop doing something?
Well, I suffer from attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, so we work on stuff that's interesting to us. And, we'll do some more Weld of the Weeks when it's appropriate. But like I said, a lot of this is spontaneous. Rather than force a episode, it's better to go and find something that's timely, topical, and interesting. So that's why you see a lot of variation in that. Right now, we're having fun with we call it the ARC Challenge Coin Challenge. Excuse me. I'll post a question, some kind of welding minutia, and it has been so much fun. And the people have been winning our ARC Challenge coins, which Johnny designed, by the way. People win them all over the world. The challenge coin isn't very expensive, but the freight is. But
right.
I'm delighted to send them all over the world, and it's been too much fun. So that's our current thing, but that'll wane also, and then we'll be on to the next topic. So yeah, we have continuity, but nothing specific.
Well, you gentlemen both will earn a challenge coin by participating in this podcast. I noticed that you do have that challenge coin piece. I was in the military, so that's how I come to it by. But have a particular challenge coin that's currently in production for guests of this podcast. So my shipment cost to Houston, I guess, won't be as high as some of yours around the world. But you can look forward to that. You talked earlier, Dan, about your three categories. One is the technical stuff. One is your bully pulpit, and I don't recall what the third was, but obviously it's a lot outside of just robotics and welding. But a lot of companies are really neurotic about saying, well, that's not our expertise. We can only talk about this narrow feature set. How did you decide that you wanted to cover that breadth?
I'm trying to make it interesting, okay? And so the third thing is human interest, So like I said, one of the ones that surprised me is we posted something about Pear David deer, and these deer. I had a video of them running around out at the ranch, and these deer were native to China, but they're extinct in China, but they're still thriving in Texas, oddly enough, and they've actually been reintroduced back into China. So to me, that's interesting. Here you have a deer that's considered to be extinct, thriving in Texas. So we posted that, and I think we had 250,000 people that agreed with me. So what does that have to do with robots? Nothing.
Right.
What does it have to do with people? Everything. So no regrets. That's why we put that third thing in, which is just human interest.
And I assume that's primarily Dan's cadre of experts.
As far as podcasts are concerned, yeah. Dan has a cadre of experts, and then we also have another podcast, The Roboticist Chronicle, that more focuses around the robotic and technical automation industry activities. Yeah.
So when you say 3 posts a week, does that mean 3 LinkedIn posts? Does it mean 3 videos? Obviously, you've got a lot of content just besides video.
Yeah, I think content. We're making stuff for LinkedIn, but it has to. We just can't use it on LinkedIn. It has to be used across the board. Like somehow, some way, we got to take that information, put it into maybe a case study, maybe FANUC or one of the robotic industries needs something for something they're doing.
Right.
We can't reach every single avenue. So it's good to have that information. We can splice it up, send it to this for this, like a trade show or like Automate. Maybe a company needs a B-reel spin of something like that. We can take that information and send it up there. So it just can't be, LinkedIn is heavy, but we try to put it across the board on everything.
And you just touched on partnerships, which is something that in the software space has really gotten a lot of traction over the last few years. In the industrial space, not so much. There's kind of this traditional channel relationship, but I think not a broader look at partnerships. Is that an opportunity? Do you think industrial companies can do more with partnerships where you're co-opting each other's audience and sharing information and content?
Oh, absolutely. We try to give credit where credit is due. Fortunately for us, none of our work is sponsored. What do they call it? What's the term for that?
Paid advertising.
Yeah, nothing's paid. So that means our opinions are truly our opinions,
right.
And so we tend to try to give credit because I'm proud that we're using 4 different brands of robots and 3 different brands of welding machines. The reason I'm using them is because they work, and so we'll give credit where it's due, not only to the company but to the people that have assisted us with any given project. No regrets there at all. And I look at our LinkedIn data. On LinkedIn you can determine not only even if you don't pay for any additional help, and we don't, you can determine which companies are watching you. Mm-hmm. And it's interesting. The people that are watching most of our videos, in the majority, are vendors. And you would think, well, that's pointless to us. Well, no, it's not, because guess what? They're trying to sell high-tech equipment to a low-tech audience, and so there needs to be an intermediary, and that's Johnny and me, and the team at Arc Specialties. So I have no regrets speaking to the vendors, because then the vendors speak to the end users. It just creates a huge sales force for us.
Yeah, that partnership angle, I think, is hugely powerful. And as it gets harder and harder to get in front of end user buyers, it's something that I think many companies are not fully appreciating. So that's an interesting angle. A lot of what you're doing is obviously building awareness and trust. It's not even necessarily direct lead generation. So I suspect that when somebody picks up the phone and calls you all or emails, it's probably more for feasibility information and to talk through a potential application. Have you seen this before? Not so much a defined project with approved budget and timeline. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely. We've got a program where I'll actually go to your plant, or John or James or one of us walk all the way through the whole plant, starting at the receiving dock all the way through manufacturing to shipping, and we'll identify problems which current level industrial automation can solve. And because typically the customers, they know what their big problems are, but they don't know what technology can do for them.
Right.
And so I love that. We call it MAP, Manufacturing Automation Audit Program. I've done them all over the world, and typically we'll identify projects that the customers have never even looked at. But if it's there's nothing wrong with doing a slam dunk automation project every now and then. It looks good on the paper.
Sure. So that means that your sales team is spending time talking with people where there's no qualified opportunity. You're creating a lot of opportunities. And a lot of companies, they say, we don't want you talking to people unless they're bank qualified, budget, authority, clear need, timeline for doing it. How do you coach your salespeople on making those time investments when it's not necessarily clear that there will be an opportunity? Are they just so good at finding them that every time they go, that they'll find something?
No, that's not the case. But I think for me, after about 3 inquiries from a given company, I'll typically give up on them, decide they're probably tire kickers. But fortunately, our sales team, they're a little more perseverant than me, so they will hang in there, because I know that they'll sell stuff that I thought was dead. But so it's intuition. We give everybody the benefit of the doubt. I just went up to Ohio, walked through a plant. I had a great time. I got to walk through a really fascinating plant, identified 8 projects that we could do. Haven't sold one of them, but I have no regrets. The process of selling capital equipment can take years, right. So you've got to be patient.
Dan, you and I first spoke when I cold called you one day. I left you a message and you called me back, and I think that's relatively unusual. And I'm guessing that's a reflection of some of what you think about outbound sales and prospecting, what you expect of your team, the culture that you want to cultivate. What do you think about outbound sales and prospecting? It's got a bad reputation these days.
Yeah, that's something we don't do because the hit rate is so low on cold calls. So no, I'm not a big fan of it, and I seldom, you must have said something. I don't recall what you said. You said something that intrigued me, so that's what got you past the first step.
Got it. And so, what does your sales team do? Do they just respond to inquiries?
Your turn, Johnny. Where did you get all these?
Oh, they just respond to inquiries. I think we push out enough content that we push out so much content that we draw the.
You create a lot of those inquiries.
I lost my word. Yeah, we create a lot of those inquiries, and then working with these manufacturers that the robotic arm manufacturers in the industry, then that helps also build the leads and everything for us because they trust us. They see what we're doing. They see that we can do it. And so that makes it kind of easier, I think, for the sales guys to talk to these guys.
And Johnny, while you're talking,
Every
what's
weekend.
your vision 3 years out? How do you think what you're creating with Dan at ARC is going to be even more unique than it is right now?
3 years from now. I just see it. I just see a well-oiled machine in about 3 to 5 years. I see more content being pushed out, more people involved. You get to see more faces of the ARC Specialties group, not just Dan. We will start seeing some more of our VPs and some more of our engineers involved, just to get a different perspective on some of these projects and things like that. Maybe we could touch on some things, but I want them to see the work that goes into all these customized systems. When I first got here, I learned that the number one use for robotic arm is to collect dust. I learned that from Dan, and that's because the people don't ask the right questions. Dan doesn't get to go through, or our team doesn't get to go through and do the maps and everything like that. So I see a more efficient website. I see the LinkedIn growing. I want to see 10,000 some odd people on our LinkedIn or something like that following us. We're constantly putting out content, and the sales just coming in because, there's nobody better than ARC Specialties in the robotic integration platform.
So you're doing all this multimedia work. You've built this capability. You've got a studio. You've got this culture. And what we're talking about is primarily focused on prospects. How much of it are you using for customer training or augmented reality, remote troubleshooting? Are you looking further through the customer lifecycle as well?
Yes, we did recent videos on remote diagnostics and training videos for offshore things and for our welding systems here. So yeah, we're taking that media and we're expanding it. We're expanding it past just vlogs and introductory things like that on the internet. So yeah, it's very helpful. All this stuff's very helpful. People go back and reference a video. I know our video for electroslag welding and atomic hydrogen have been referenced so much in the past that I've heard Dan have conversations, college students and things like of that sort coming in, and it's very helpful.
And how about augmented reality? Are you combining the video that you're making with other tools to provide a different experience?
I think we've come across some augmented reality. Would love to touch on it a little bit more, but that's something we got to get into.
Okay. Dan, I know many employees have been at ARC for many years, and you recognize longevity in an interesting way when somebody hits, I think it's 20 years. Tell me about that.
10 years, well, let's see, 5 years you get a stock. So we gave away a bunch of stock in the company. 10 years you get a Rolex, and 20 years you get whatever you want. And so when Gary got 20 years, we cut a hole in the front. If you look at our building, it's tilt wall, but there's one window, and that's Gary's window. John Martin just went to Greece, took his whole family to Greece. James just went to some place in the Caribbean. So
Yeah.
But we're giving away 2 Rolexes next month. So we've got 2 more guys that have gotten Rolex. Unfortunately, we didn't have a program in place when I got 10 years, so I don't have one yet.
How many have you given away?
30 some odd
High
Rolexes.
30s, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because this, without the people here, this is just an old building with a bunch of machines in it. Nothing happens. And
Right.
So I'm deeply appreciative of the people that have hung in with me for all this time. Because back in the beginning, we were in a little 4,000-foot shop. Fortunately, I was able to convince some people of my vision. Now, we've got nice buildings in a couple of states. But early on, it was hard to get people to believe that ARC Specialties would survive at all, much less thrive. But we've done a good job of it, and that's what drives Johnny and me. We've got 60 people, 60 families we're trying to keep fed, and so we've got to bring in new work because business is cyclical. We're in defense, we're in oil, we're in electric vehicles, internal combustion vehicles, everything. But everything is cyclical. So you have to continuously look for new projects. You have to refocus on different areas depending upon, which group is actually spending money and buying equipment. But if Johnny and I fail, then 60 families go hungry. And
Right.
I don't want that.
But obviously, you've got this huge body of work that you've built over years, and I get the sense that it's accelerating as you create it. But for all those different industries, all those different applications, it's not like you're pivoting all of a sudden and saying, "Oh, geez, we got to look at EVs." You've been building stuff for each of these industries for a while.
Right, but when they're up, it's great. But
Right.
when they're down, you've got to look elsewhere.
Right.
And I think the rock bit industry is fascinating. This way back, my first job out of school was working for Hughes Tool, Howard Hughes' old rock bit, and his father was the one that invented the tricone rotary rock bit, and so we got into that. And that was a great business for us. We were building the machines that did the bearings and the cone teeth and the shirt tails for the ground engagement. Wonderful business. Made a lot of money on it. Got them running in Russia, China, France, everywhere. Guess what? Technology changes. So now the rock bit industry has pretty much abandoned Howard Hughes' original 100-year-old technology, and they've gone to a polycrystalline diamond rock bit. So we would have been like a buggy whip manufacturer. You don't need buggy whips any longer. We're still drilling holes to get oil, but they're doing it with a different technology. And fortunately for us, John Martin, just one of our VPs, has just developed a new welding process using plasma that will allow us to do the polycrystalline bits. So, even within an industry which we are known across the globe, we have to continuously innovate or die.
Sure. On a more kind of tactical point, most of your videos seem like they're kind of 2 to 5 minutes. How much time goes into, let's say, a 3-minute video? What would you say is your all-in time commitment for the two of you together?
I don't think we'll shoot a video on the spot. Like we'll shoot a video on the spot, and Dan has such, that's a lot of knowledge. It's a wealth of knowledge inside of Dan. So when he gets into a topic, just let him go. Let him speak as much about the topic
Right.
as he wants, as much as he can. Dan's really hands on, so he'll grab a lot of things that relate to the topic or anything like that. Put it all together. I just do the workload of editing and polishing up the video to make it sound cohesive and make it sound right. And most of the time, it's from beginning to end. We haven't figured out the perfect process of how go about making a video, but once I get that information down, Dan gives me all the information. I pay attention to what we've done in the past, and we start putting that together, polishing it, and make it a nice package for potential client or just an onlooker to see and
All right,
benefit from.
but let's be a little more specific about the estimate. So 3-minute video. Let's say you take 30 minutes to record a couple takes. Then what are you
Okay.
spending editing? 2 hours?
Yeah, that's about 2 hours. Depends on the video.
Of course.
It depends how impressing that video is. Like if let's say it's today and Dan wants the video. I'm this topic is hot on my mind. What can I do? I'll put my head down on it. Take a couple
Okay.
hours, and we'll finish that video. Or I'll have a stack of videos, and it'll take a week or so just to knock them down. But the whole process is the process. We're not, we'll spend a few minutes, polish it, get everything we need together, and I'd say a video actually is probably a day.
Okay.
A day
So
of
so
work.
then by the time you upload it to YouTube and you optimize it a bit on YouTube, you upload it to LinkedIn, you build a post around it on LinkedIn, you think a day roughly for a typical 3 to 5 minute video.
Yeah, I'd say a
Okay.
day. That depends on how much you're putting into it. I mean, there's a lot of other factors that go into a video, that go into the process. But I'll say if it's just a video, I'll make sure like a full day's
Okay.
work is what it takes to get it out. But there's other videos we've done like our mobile robot. That's a lot of moving pieces. There's a lot of different things involved in that, so that could
Sure.
stretch for
Right.
a week.
Dan, with your comfort speaking publicly, I'm surprised I only see a couple YouTube live events. Why don't you do more of those?
Oh,
I don't believe in them. Johnny does. The problem with live is I don't go to, I don't do YouTube live, and I don't think anybody else does, but once they're recorded, then they're more convenient. So back up to the videos, I think Johnny's exaggerating at a whole day, because typically, if we do a 3-minute video, we might shoot it 2 to 3 times. So my investment is 10 minutes, and then I'm done. But that's when you need somebody like Johnny, because I've seen too many videos of somebody holding the camera and talking in front of it,
Right.
and that's just not what is interesting. So when we're in the shop, it's pretty easy, because we're shooting a lot of cool stuff that's running in the shop. But if it's just me talking, that's when Johnny earns his living. He does cutaways, he does the B-roll stuff, and then he'll show it to me, and probably 8 times out of 10, I won't touch it. And then a couple times I'll say, hey, right when I say this, could you put something in there to demonstrate? But so it really depends. If it's out in the shop, there might not be a single cutaway. 10 minutes for me, a couple hours for Johnny, we're all in. Because he's also doing literally everything from search engine optimization to website to I think currently he's designing Hawaiian shirts with robots on it, and we're taking everybody to Mexico next week along with their families. So Johnny's making T-shirts for all the employees. So
Nice.
I just don't see you spending the whole day on any of these, Johnny.
I think what happens is also the knowledge I get from always listening to Dan speak, listening to things, so I can go in my memory banks and okay, we shot a video that
Right.
relates to
Right.
that. That's how I get the good quality cutaways that I do. Just paying attention to what he's saying, taking mental notes. And I think is for a marketing person, it's important to understand exactly what's going on in the company on the floor and with the employees. Go to the right person, get the right B-roll, just get all that information. Then it makes the video kind of easier to make. You start to put it together mentally. That's what I do all the time. I'm putting it together mentally as Dan's speaking. I'm like through my memory breaks, I'm grabbing that YouTube video. Oh, that was the weld of the week from in 2001. I'm gonna grab that, put that in there. So
But I got to say, Johnny, that may feel natural to you, just because you have the aptitude and that's the way your mind works. But I watch a lot of marketing people in industrial companies, and they're just checking a box. Oh, we need a video. Okay, fine. Without, investing themselves emotionally in the success of the company the way you have. And I'm sure a lot of that is Dan's leadership, but a lot of it is you, and you deserve credit for that.
oh, thanks. I think my graphic design background comes in because I know that what a brand is. It's like the iceberg. They always have the
Right.
iceberg example. It's so much bigger on the bottom. So I think it's important that the marketing people go out and go around and go to each part of the
Sure.
company, see what's going on in that part of the company, and that's going to make you more. I think more
How
valuable.
often are you on
Like
the
you get
road
to
in
see what's
customer
going on.
facilities?
I don't know. I get invited to customer facilities sometimes, so I would love to go a lot more. Like there's a company recently last week, I believe they're thinking about having me come out. I'm trying to push them to just invite me, just let me come out. We could do an interview. It'd be
Right.
Well,
harmless,
talk about pits
things
and
like that.
spits. I
Yeah,
like that one because I had no input. I stayed here. Johnny did the whole thing.
it's fun when you get a customer that's also, a customer is also upbeat about it. Like, oh, I want to show off my company and I want to show off this new cool thing we just added to our company, and it's helping a lot. So I think people want to talk about those things, and I think just getting out and being personable with these clients, just don't look at them as a
Right.
dollar sign. Just look at it, try to help them out as well too.
And
And
I gotta tell you a story, Ed, because you really nailed it. We used a marketing company because everyone I had hired was a disappointment, and so we had a third party marketing company, and they did a great job. And Johnny and I credit them for a lot of the stimulus getting us into this stuff. But I remember their videos. Their cutaways were wrong. I mean,
Right.
I love the guys, but because at Arc Specialties, you have robots building customer parts, but you also have machines building robots. And it's two, to a geek like me, that's two entirely different processes. But they would just throw B-roll in there any which way.
Right.
As far as they were concerned, anytime you saw chips and sparks, that was adequate. And I remember I used to just grit my teeth and take it. Because it was wrong. But I'm sure our customer, the more sophisticated customers, going like, that doesn't look right.
Yeah,
But now with Johnny, everything is spot on, technically accurate. And I told you, 2 out of 10, I ask him for some changes. The only time I do that now is when, he's got something technically incorrect on there. But I got to say, Johnny, those instances are becoming fewer and fewer and further between.
And how much of that is just
thanks.
having 6 years of experience in the business?
you gotta get on the floor. You gotta watch. I mean, you know,
Do you wear steel toes every day?
not
No.
every day. Like I said, when the guys see me with boots on, out here, Johnny got boots
You
on.
don't put those silly
It's
yellow
like,
things
where are the
over the
cameras?
toe of your sneakers, do you?
I don't know. I'll wear
All right.
industrial boots. I'll wear boots. This is Texas. We'll wear some boots and
All
some
right.
jeans.
Speaking of
Yeah, but
technicalities, are you Adobe, Canva? What's your toolkit?
I'm an Adobe guy. But I've always been whatever the software is. If I get my hands on it, I'm gonna
Right.
figure it out and make it work to my benefit. You can't be afraid of software. Uh, do whatever it takes to get the endpoint to get it done. If we have to do if I have to get on my iPhone and edit a video, I've edited a couple videos on iPhone for a trade show. Just because the next day I had to put a different video up, so I edited it right there on my phone, get it out. I mean, this technology's come a
Right.
long way, so you're not really limited anymore. You can get stuff
And how
done.
about staff? Sounds like you're doing everything. Do you have folks on your team? Do you use contractors?
I'm sorry with that
Do
last
you use
part.
contractors?
Um, for marketing,
No, we
no,
just make
no,
Johnny
sir.
work more hours. It's a simple
No,
solution.
no, sir. Yeah, like the website here. I mean, giving it to somebody is one thing, but I'm really invested in the company. I want the company to
Right.
look good. I want everybody here to look good. So when I want my hands on it, and if somebody can help with that, then okay. But if you can't, like if I give you a video and you throw in like Dan said, the CNC machine cutting metal when we're talking about plasma cutting on a 3D part, that's not going to work well for our end customer. I would be, if I would saw a video saying something, seeing that, I would probably not be interested anywhere. They don't know what they're
And
talking
certainly,
about.
this partnership that you have with your vendors wouldn't be nearly as successful because you wouldn't have the credibility with them, and they'd be worried about what kind of crap you guys might put out.
Yeah, exactly. Instead, I get I get the vendors sending people
Right.
to me at trade shows saying, "Hey, X Johnny, what can we do to push this forward?" I think that's so cool, so awesome that somebody's approaching me about their marketing by looking at our marketing here at Arc
Right.
Specialty. So I think that's awesome.
Dan, you seem to excel at just about everything that you touch. What's something that you've worked at really hard and you've got passion for, but you just haven't achieved your accustomed level of performance?
Interesting. Well, we're pretty perseverant. We hang in there until it runs. No, I'm building a machine right now that doesn't work yet. I'm trying to recreate the very first electric weld that was done in 1792, and so far it's it's beating me. But like I said, if you just hang in there, you'll persevere. So I'll have it running before 2 weeks. That's when the summit occurs.
Yeah, the trick is going to be making it UL compliant.
It is far from UL compliant.
Anything else on trade shows? Obviously, you gentlemen have figured out a lot about video and LinkedIn that many other companies haven't figured out. How about trade shows themselves? Have you figured out tips and tricks and techniques to make a trade show more effective that you think others might have overlooked?
I think it's important that when you look at a trade show, first, one, you got to make sure it's a good trade show for your company. Two, if it's a good trade show for your company, then you need to look at where the traffic is in that trade
What do you mean?
show. A lot of companies get thrown against the
Got it.
wall. They get put in the back areas. They're in the dark, and it looks like they're in the dark. You'll go to a very big trade show, tons of people at this trade show. You'll walk the floor, and you'll see signs of the trade show that there's absolutely no traffic. And in my opinion, you didn't do your research on the trade show, or you just signed up too late for the
Well, a lot of
game.
times, though, you got to
But
get
you
in the
want to
queue. You got to go several years in order to get a better booth, right?
Yes, yeah. So trade shows like that we do here, like OTC, Dan's did a great job of staying a part of that trade show because it's kind of it's like a
Right.
club. You got to stay in that club, and once you leave the club, you kind of reset your status there. So staying involved and also being interesting. like when you get to that spot, the mid floor, you get to that main traffic area, you want to stay interesting. So I love it when the trade show people will come up and say, hey, we're going to move you guys up the queue next year because we see that you're actually bringing in quite a bit of people
So
to the
what keeps
show.
it interesting?
So
Is it just the arms flipping around and moving and doing stuff, or is it the
Dan
graphics, or
always
what
said you
is it?
got to have those. Dan said you got to have that movement. You got to have movement in the booth. Where a lot of booths are just lights and
Right.
backdrops. You got to have some interactivity a little bit, something awesome to see. So you got to keep it interesting for the looker because people are going to stop and watch if it's worth stopping watching. They're going to hear about it and come from their side. Wait till the show's over, come to the booth afterwards. I love it when even the trade show employees, the floor staff, is asking questions about the
And how
booth.
about the gimmicks? The robot arm pouring a beer. Are you more focused on an actual illustration of an industrial application?
I'm all in
I
on
think that's
beer bot.
yeah.
It's funny. People want to buy beer bot, but that's not what we do. But it brings people in. Does it bring the right ones in? Some of them. I got to tell you, on trade shows, what you got to have is Johnny. I mean, because he'll design the booth, he'll install the booth, and he'll interface with the guys at the trade show. It ain't easy either. I mean,
Right.
the electricians can be hostile. The guys moving stuff around can be hostile. The people that decide who gets which booth. And Johnny has done a great job. He's in tight with all three of these groups, which is pretty amazing. And the thing
Yeah.
that I think you got to do at a trade show, because I walk trade shows, I got attention deficit disorder, so I don't stay in the booth with Johnny. I go walk around, and the booth has to make a good initial impression in under 5 seconds because I'm walking that fast. So that's what I push Johnny to do is get a booth going that'll make an impression that's good enough that I'll walk in there and want more information. I
So
don't
what do
have
you
to
look
understand
for?
the whole thing.
What gets your attention?
Something useful. I'm at the show to solve problems because
Okay.
I live in fear we'll become dinosaurs. So when I go to shows, I'm looking for new technology that's going to eclipse the old technology and make us obsolete. So as I walk by, and if I see some 3D vision that looks like it might be tangible, practical, and useful, I walk into the booth. And the third thing we do is we always speak at shows if they'll have us. I think we're doing the defense contractor show, and I'm speaking at that one. We're doing the AWS. I'm speaking at that. So that's something I recommend to people. But once again, you got to get over your fear of public speaking, and you have to have a topic that's worth listening to. And so if you have every time we've done a trade show where I've spoke back in the conference rooms, I swear it drives traffic to the booth.
Got it. What's the most startling criticism either of you have gotten about the content and your approach?
It's super professional.
That's not
I think
criticism.
extremely professional work, Like,
But has anybody said you guys are
I'm my own
nuts?
word.
Oh, why are you doing this?
Yeah.
You're crazy because of XYZ reason.
I haven't heard anything.
No, it's funny. We try to get people on that refuse to come on because they can't get through the bureaucratic red tape. And
Right.
so people are a little bit shocked that we're so open. When I have competitors show up, we give them a shop tour. I'm not afraid. I love competition. And so that's why we're so forthcoming with technical details. Because, I'm giving away the secrets, but you got to put it all together to make it work. So people are a little bit shocked that we give away as much as we do. But, hey, that's the way we've always been, and too late to change now.
So as we get ready to wrap up, both of you talking from experience to companies who haven't embraced what you're doing, may be intrigued by it. Give me what you think are the axioms they must follow and, 3 mistakes that they should avoid that you learned slowed you down along the way that you had to overcome.
I'm going to say just do it,
Okay.
And do it on a regular basis. I follow a lot of people, and I love reading their stuff. And when there's a dry spell and they don't put anything out, I lose interest.
Right.
And that's why we're trying to hit 3 just quick ones every week. Some of them it does take Johnny a day to do, but some of them are a gift, and some verbiage. Just put it out there. So I'd say just do it. You might find you enjoy it. You might find it's useful, and you will learn in the process. And never quit, because once you quit, then you become irrelevant again, and then you have to start all over. So that's my input.
Johnny?
Yeah, I think consistency is key. When you're putting stuff out, look for how it's going to benefit the customer on the endpoint.
Amen.
Like we can put information out, make sure it benefits the
Right.
customer. We do, like we said, we do our human interest and our opinion. But I think that the fact that we're a thought leadership, you bought into us now. Now you can buy into some of the things that we're talking about on the side. That keeps it interesting. But don't be afraid to have some things. Make a segment. Come up with a segment like Word of the Week. Come up with something that will keep you consistent for a while. I think Word of the Week was building our consistency, helping us build our consistency here. But just got to be involved and get ready to push some stuff out. Don't wait for a new system. Just go back in your archives, look at what you have, and see how can you refresh that content.
And what do you're
out.
making me think of another question as you're talking about that. You must have a pretty good process for every time a machine gets ready to ship, how you document it by video without any specific objective in mind at the time, just knowing that you'll have that B-roll or you'll have that in your archives. Is that a routine part of your process too?
Yeah, you want to. I think I want to record everything that
Right.
I can. If it doesn't make it to the internet, that's cool. But it could be internal. It can be internal things. Like it could be something that we go back on. Like I said, having that knowledge that I recorded all this. When Dan brings something up in a
Right.
topic, it's easy for me to go back and be like, okay, this part was this, that was relatable, so I can add this to it.
Dan, when I cold called you and you called me back that day, one of the things that you mentioned was that you'll go speak at any event where you get an invite. And you just talked about at trade shows. And I think the point of that is that a company doesn't necessarily have to plan on building their YouTube channel over time. I mean, they could simply concentrate on getting their executives out there in front of people and speaking. Do you quantify the payoff for that, or is it like your video content where you just believe that it's going to work?
You got to believe, and you're supposed to give back to the industry that's giving you a livelihood anyway. So I've flown as far as California to speak to American Welding Society. I find it an honor, and I'm paying for the airplane tickets, everything. But
Right.
The fact we get invited back means it's worth listening to. So everyone should speak in public. All the professional societies are looking for speakers. I encourage you to do it.
All right. I'm sure that you gentlemen have some creative conflicts. This has been kind of a love fest, and obviously there's a great bit of success working together. Dan, you move fast. You must have some ideas that are too crazy even for Johnny. Do you ever push back, and how do the two of you resolve those?
Do I push back? Dad would love me to push back a little bit more often, I believe. But I'm open. I like to be open. I like to see what it is, and then if I don't think it works, I'll make a slight nod, like,
Why don't you keep that to yourself? Yeah.
You could think about it.
I rely on Johnny because I'll push the envelope and I'll go like, did I go too far? He goes, yeah, that's too far. And so we'll back it off a little bit, particularly when we get to opinions and stuff. The one thing that I am always harping on, and this has gotten to be a joke between Johnny and I, there's 4 components to a good video. There's the big picture, the close up, the arc on, which is what is the process? That's the show the process, and the final part. And so that's our joke now, is if he doesn't get the 4 critical parts of a video, but you watch stuff online, and if it's not professionally done, either you don't get the big picture, or you don't get the close up, or you don't see the process that's
Right.
occurring, or you don't see the results. So that's the 4 things. And so I try to get Johnny to shoot all 4 of those on every job, because I'm trying to explain the whole process to somebody who may not be familiar with it. So that's our standing joke. And every now and then I'll say, Johnny, you left out one of the 4.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. So real quick, people have been listening to you. They may think, geez, we have an automation opportunity in our factory. Tell everyone quickly, more accurately than I did at the beginning, what ARC Specialties does and who is a great prospect for your company?
Well, the good news is automation saves jobs, and it allows people to live better lives. For example, the first automation success story was agriculture. That's why you have plentiful food and nobody's working on the farm. So if you have a process that you would like to automate, we're interested, because we've done everything from potatoes to plutonium and anything in between. So if you want to remove the human from an operation, give us a call. And that's why I've got a laboratory. We came up with a way to pick up tomato plant seedlings without damaging them.
Wow.
That's not in the textbook. That's the kind of stuff you've got to do in a laboratory. So everybody out there, if you're building something, or making something, there's a chance that the automation might benefit it. The Federal Reserve is always trying to get a certain amount of inflation every year. So we're working against the Federal Reserve. We're trying to make everything cheaper and more plentiful. So if you're doing anything from potatoes to plutonium and you think you might have an application, look us up online, www.arcspecialties.com.
And how do people get in touch with each of you gentlemen?
Well, you can get in touch with us on LinkedIn. I'm Johnny at arcspecialties.com if you want to send me an email.
I'm just Dan at Arc Specialties.
But LinkedIn is the place where you're both active, easy to find you, great for people to follow. I'll tell you anecdotally, I've talked to a couple people around the world, Singapore, and I don't remember where the other place was. And I couldn't remember the name of Arc Specialties, and I'm embarrassed, Dan. I'm sorry, I couldn't remember your name. I said, the guy in Texas that makes all those videos about automation. They said, "Oh, you mean Dan from Arc Specialties?" So it's working. I can tell you that it's working.
Mission accomplished.
Cool.
All right, both of you here create a lot of content. You know what it takes to create content. So help me out. What do you recommend that those who are watching and listening do at this point?
Just start making content. Like Dan said, just do it. Just get out there and start putting together stuff. We had a vendor here for shipping some boxes, and the guy's like, man, I think he stopped Dan and said, I want you to, I wish I can, get on LinkedIn like he, I forget what this is Dan's story, but just getting that guy to post. I saw that guy's LinkedIn post the next day.
Johnny, hand him a microphone, and we shot a video right then and there, and
Wow.
and he's been pushing that all over the place. And we'll know we succeeded when he creates his own. And but he had fun that day. He got over his camera fear, and he's a great vendor, so I'm happy to do it for him.
Well, this is fabulous. Thank you both very much. Everyone listening, hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Make sure that you like the episode, share it, comment, and be sure to subscribe. Thanks very much for joining me today, gentlemen.
Thanks for having me.
And thanks everyone for watching and listening.